in each case, maybe there's a little bit of a different. Let's start with beans and legumes, okay? Because
Yeah.
we know from all of the research that's been done on beans and legumes that these are some of the healthiest foods that we can eat. These are some of the best foods for our gut, and people who live the longest lives are found to eat a larger than average amount of beans and legumes. So we know that if we eat these, we have better health and longer lives. So we want to eat beans and legumes. Now, what happens though, if you try and eat a little bit of these foods and then you find you get indigestion or something like that? So this can happen with any food. Any food that triggers symptoms of any kind just means that your body doesn't have the right bacteria to break that food down. That is all that means, okay? A little bit could be digestive enzymes or the release of bile acid if it's a fatty food, but generally it's more likely that it's the fiber and it's the bacteria. This happens a lot to people with RA because we know we've got a bacterial problem in our bowel because we have rheumatoid arthritis. If we had a perfect microbiome, we would not have symptoms. Okay, now that applies to the mouth as well. We've got to have an optimal oral microbiome as well as a colonic microbiome. And of course, the small intestine, because we can have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and see RA symptoms as well. So the areas that matter are the mouth, the small intestine, and the large intestine. Pretty much everywhere there is moisture and a dark space. Now, the best thing to do is not to give up on the foods that you're trying to eat because you get adverse effects. The solution is microdosing. So if you try and eat a serving of beans and you get bloating or gassy or something, the thing to do is next time you want to test beans, cook a regular size serving, but only have a teaspoon of beans. Then the next day, see how you feel. If you don't have problems, next day, go back to the fridge where you have leftovers from the beans and had another teaspoon at lunch. Next day, another teaspoon. And after a week, you've used up probably all the beans are starting to maybe need to be thrown away, but you've done beans every day. Then cook the beans again, and week number 2, do a tablespoon of beans at lunch every day. And then by week 3, you will be able to have beans and not have symptoms. Of course, sometimes beans causes flatulence or regular normal gas because it's creating some gas as a byproduct of fermentation. But that's totally normal. That's different to stomach bloating or joint pain. So if you get normal gas from taking beans, that's good. That means your bacteria is doing its job. And if you do what I just said with 1 teaspoon of these foods at a time, you will have a huge breakthrough. Because when you eat the beans, they're very beneficial for inflammation reduction. And last thing I want to say is that is the same strategy for oats and for fermented foods. And both of those are very, very important. So that's beans, oats, and fermented foods. Each one of those should be microdosed, and then you persist with that to get those into the diet.